I have a water consciousness movement group on Facebook that gets a lot of engagement, but
you can share it from one of the pages. You can. It's okay. So we're live on. You can go to Todd Medina Facebook and just share it.
Just share it right on there from that.
Yeah, I'm going to play an intro and allow people time to come in. But yeah, you can go to my page and share it to wherever you want to.
Perfect.
All right. Welcome everybody on the live and replay. We'll be right back with a new beloved, beautiful brother, Seth. And we're going to go deep. Let me just welcome Sigrid Mensel. Good evening from the UK. My first time here. Welcome. Welcome, beloved friend. Welcome, everybody. It's our second show of the day, probably our last one. I'm going to go on somebody else's program tonight, Alicia Brosh out of Australia. But we got a beautiful, beloved brother with us, Seth. And I'm new to his energy. And just like we normally do on this program, is we're going to just get to know each other in front of everybody else. And we all, you've all heard me say it many times, I think our highest activations, channelings, downloads, and transmissions come from two people or more having a conversation about what the hell's going on. But welcome to the show, beloved brother. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us today. I'm ready to go deep. This is a conversation. It's not a typical Q&A, so you're welcome to ask questions as well. And I think I'm just going to throw the original question from SOULSPEAKS 5D after 2,350 episodes, the one we use the most, which is, when did you wake up? Or were you always an ET?
Many, many, many lifetimes ago. But realistically, just from a very here, now, in this life perspective, as a young child, I would just sit in my front yard where I lived in Maine, and I would stare at the tree line. Nobody taught me how to do this. There was no instruction. There was no articulation. There was no thought. There was just the knowingness that sitting in my front yard and staring at the tree line evoked a feeling in me that was so normal and natural, but yet infinitely profound. And as I would sit and stare, everything would get brighter and brighter and brighter until everything around me, the apparent vision of the world around me, disappeared. And all that was there was this energy field that was perceiving reality through me. And I became aware that that field was much more real than everything around me. So.
Yeah. Then did you have a point where you had to figure out that not everybody was seeing things the way you were?
My first day of kindergarten, first day I went to school, was the first day that I actually felt fear or constriction. I felt, these natural states that I would just be in normally suddenly were coming up against something. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure it out because I was a kid. I didn't have the ability to articulate it and understand it, but I knew something was way off at that point.
Yeah. Did you go through some of the traditional journeys that the light workers have, which is woke up like you did or was born like you were, And as you got further indoctrinated into the conditioning and the programming, you go to school, get out of school, get married, get a job, kind of go to sleep. You're still there, but you kind of get caught up in that stuff that comes against you, and then have a reawakening moment. Did that happen for you that way?
It's interesting. I left home at about 15, 16 years old, and I went deep into the woods of northern Maine where I just focused. I didn't know what it was that I was looking for or felt disconnected from, but I just knew that there was something that could be more complete. And so I just began working through all the layers of whatever it was that inhibited my ability to really know myself as truly connected.
Yeah.
And that went on for years and years and years. And it actually, after going through a whole series of these awakenings and all these, different activations and becoming aware of myself and this world from so many different dimensions and layers of reality within, then after all that, I was like, you know what? I'm ready to experience some duality.
Yeah, right.
I need some contrast, and so I did. I went back into the world and I got caught up in all of the things that people get caught up in so that I could really learn what the human condition is up against.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like you had a open line of communication with your higher self, whether it was purely conscious or not, to have that type of guidance at such a young age. Was there something that went down in the woods? I mean, I'm big on the nature beings and nature and the elementals and the earth. Not that the rest of them are discounted at all, but did you have any experiences when you went on that sabbatical?
Absolutely. I mean, I happened to be with somebody, a friend of mine, a close friend who, at the time, I didn't know what it was about him, but I knew or suspected.
Go ahead. My wife decided to blow
It's
the
all
bride.
perfect. It's the divine vacuum of space. Just
Here, I'm going to try. You keep going.
okay. I knew that he knew something. I didn't know what, but I just had this intuitive knowingness that he was aware of something that I wanted to be aware of to the degree that he was, but he wouldn't really let on to it. It took a while before he started letting on to it. But in the woods, when you are just breathing calm and you're in a state of peace, I always knew, and it's just common sense in the sense that there's this energy that is causing my heart to beat. There's this energy that's causing all of these functions in my body to happen, regardless of who I think I am, regardless of what I think this world is. And I knew that energy that was causing all of this to happen in me was also the same energy that was causing the natural world to exist. And so I knew that the feeling of this energy when it was harmonized with that of nature was such that it was like, okay, this makes sense. This is what it feels like to feel connected. And then to have the ability to consciously perceive yourself in alignment with, microscopic bacteria all the way up to multiverses was just a natural function of human consciousness. But as soon as I started thinking, oh, I'm me and I'm separate from this energy in my body, which none of us are. None of us are separate from it. But things happen in this world where we suddenly start to question, who am I? What is this? Why is this happening? Why do I feel so disconnected? And when that happened, it doesn't matter that the entire universe is connected to you, through you, all around you. The human experience is such that we're being called to go into these layers and realms of density so that we can really understand the depth of what causes humans to suffer.
We signed up for the full experience, right? I mean, it's happening now. I mean, like this embodiment that's occurring by force or by flow. It's like let go or be dragged, because this is going down. And I love what you say too, because it's always such a paradoxical thing, right? I mean, on one hand, like you said, you're like, if you go to that point where you're like, oh, I'm special. I'm separate from all this. I'm above all this. Uh, but you are special, but not in the way the human kind of gravitated to. And yeah, that's a great explanation that you said. What about like there's so much stuff on the table. There's so many things. I went to your page, for instance, and I saw some interesting posts and stuff that you've done. One of them was in regard to to somebody's post that you said you could identify with, which talked about, in essence, sacred sexuality, sexual energy, or sacred sexual energy, celibacy. But also, we've got all this other stuff on the board too. We've got the galactic stuff, we've got the past memories, the future progressive memories, angelic, other divine essences, off planet, off universe. And ultimately, it all falls down to this core, which is the human being, or I should say the evolving divine human being that is 99% of the time conscious, with what seems to be less than 1% of its total aspects, And so you go, wait a minute, how can we be front and center the majority of the time, and although it's changing, more of the aspects are coming in and all that, and this not be important? That's why, we have a hashtag here, the human is a hero. But it's just like, it's so weird. It's like the dog's been chasing its tail the whole time, and we just bit our tail and are screaming in pain.
Yeah. I love it because there's so much that's all within the realm of human knowing, right? Of what we think is happening. And it's great and it's beautiful and it can be so supplemental to our own growth. But the closer we come to source, to the source of energy that's animating our being, that's causing our heart to beat, everything that we think we know about what this world is and the things that might be happening, no matter if they're just in our day-to-day life or even the greatest esoteric teachings, all of that stuff dissipates into nothingness the closer we get to the source that is actually animating us.
Yeah.
And, and I'll just say sexual energy is part of what really helped me to expedite my growth. I spent 3 years in prison and for marijuana, and I wasn't using it much at the time, and I knew it was something that I wasn't super passionate about, and so I was still involved with selling it. But I got arrested. It was just the most extreme ego-crushing thing to go through that and then be put in prison. But I knew I had a lot of sexual energy. I'm not gay. I love gay people. I have lots of gay friends, but I'm not gay. And I knew, I was like, what am I going to do with this energy? And I didn't have books in there about any of this stuff. I didn't know that there's Taoist techniques and things that, you can use and harness and apply in a certain way. But I literally felt this energy and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just breathe it into the different organs in my body, and I'm going to keep doing this every single day. And I did that over and over and over. And then something happened one day where you could say I had like a heartgasm.
Yeah.
And I realized that I could do this in any part of my body that I focus breathing that energy into. And when it would do that, I suddenly would become aware of a different layer and dimension of what I am, what we all are, in a way that I wasn't able to before.
Yeah.
So that energy we're all here because of it, right?
Yeah.
It's such a powerful, potent energy, but everybody's used to using it from an external way.
That's right.
Without even realizing the internal use of how to do it.
That's a very good synopsis. That's excellent. Let's go deep. So, first of all, I want to say that I think your reflections on your sexual energy and how that kind of presented itself in terms of you being incarcerated for 3 years. I've not gone to prison. When I reawoke 9 years ago, I did go to the county jail for 34 days in a high security section. And and so there was a lot of unraveling and stuff, like a lot of people talk about before they really start to launch and expand. But one of the things that came up was the sexual energy. I didn't understand it at the time. I wasn't probably as aware of it as you were because I wasn't in there 3 years. But what I did get to was a point where I said, you know what? I understand my sexual energy is coming, like my work, poetry or imagery or speaking. There's a sexual, thing going on here, sacred sexual. There's a creative flow. And then also chose celibacy and went almost 4.5 years. And then I met my wife, and then that's a whole nother, part of it. But I guess what I'm getting at is I really feel like we're starting to materialize and physicalize in our experience these non-physical things. And I think first and foremost is sacred sexual energy, which is misconstrued like everything else, like twin flame and even the term ascension and whatever. But this, if as more and more people begin to transform from the distorted sexual programming to the innate creative divine union, sacred sexual energetic expressions, that we are going to start to see the physical ramifications of that in a very positive way. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, and I can relate to the soulgasms and the heartgasms and the solargasms and the crowngasms and, having, many other experiences involving the sacred sexual energy, especially with my beloved partner. But I can see now that things like teleportation and bilocation and walking on water without getting your ankles wet are certainly within our grasp.
And the reason why is because we are not what we think we are. Everybody believes they're a human being, and we are, but that's a secondary expression of what we actually are. And so, it's such a secondary expression that if you were to suddenly just instantly become aware of how much of a secondary expression that is, you would be focusing on the primary expression of it, which is energy, for a lot. You direct a lot of your attention to the non-physical, the invisible, the energetic frequencies that empower our human experience to begin with. And from that place, our humanness is then able to take on new dimensions. It's able to take on virtues that are reflective of these higher states that are actually just normal. They're just normal states.
That's right. And that's a great point too, because even if you look at like, say a past life memory or certain coded sacred wisdom comes in communion or a download or transmission channeling, there's a sacred sexual vibratory aspect to that as well. Maybe you call it the truth or whatever you want to call it, or pure love. And the thing is when we cultivate that, it expands. And that's what you're saying. And I think the other part of it is we get overwhelmed. We get wowed. We're like, oh my God, look what I can do, or look what they told me, or I was so-and-so's son in a past life, or I was Jesus, or I was this, and really all of it's true. But the whole thing is, it's coming back to here. And it's like the human is, in a different sense of the word, a vehicle of creation to further expand its experience. And at least where I'm coming from, it's like, wow, we're really going to start seeing, miraculous divine human achievements and demonstrations in a very thick physical realm, which is going to absolutely blow our minds. I believe that there's not a person on the face of the earth today that knows what the hell is going to happen. But I do feel wholeheartedly that whatever it is in 2020, I think, even though it's been pretty intense, like a roller coaster, I think that it's getting better and better, and the prize is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And the great part about it is it's all incumbent upon ourselves as far as how much we want to maximize the potential.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a lot of people, as uncomfortable as it all feels, it's like this contrast is what offers us the opportunity to realize that we are so much more than we think we are. We're so much more than anybody has ever told us we are. And the more that we start to consider that and feel what that actually feels like, because it is experiential. It's everything we're talking about. It's philosophical, it's theoretical. There is that, but we're just giving voice to something that is experiential within every single human being alive. And the harsh outer circumstances that we see often serve as a catalyst that can really bring us closer to the essence of what we are. But because most people don't know that it's like that, they instead do the opposite. They constrict, or they reject it and, become a victim or whatever, and then push that thing away, when really it's like, okay, I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the way it feels. Everybody and everything that there ever was seems to be going against me. But I know there's a part of me that loves this unconditionally no matter what, and I'm going to embrace it as that. If we do that, if we can find it within ourselves to actually interact with reality in that way, then those things that look so scary and that are creating so much havoc in the world reveal themselves for what they truly are, which is our greatest teachers. They're the things that are literally helping our soul evolve through our human vehicle or our human temple.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a sense too of, I think you said something to this effect early on, which is, in my own words, and don't take it so seriously. This isn't supposed to be I remember when I hit the streets, when I woke up, I hit the streets for a couple of years. And I remember, because there was, like a lot of people's stories, a lot of trauma. But the universe told me one night, sleeping in a park, and it said, hey, everything you've ever done, everyone will know. And I thought to myself for a second, holy shit, man, that's not good. I've been wild and crazy my whole life. And then I understood the inverse, that we would know everything about everything. And that the human part of it was such a small part. It was like the cosmic God's laugh, and, like we're taking something so seriously. There's something about being relaxed that, in your frequency, and then incorporating within it certain, let's say, patterns or behaviors or practices, such as what you're talking about with moving your sacred sexual energy into your organs, where it looks like you're singularly accomplishing one thing, like a heartgasm, but the truth is you're opening up an entire field of parallel activations and code awakenings. And I mean, it's not like the math that we've been operating on. It's a much greater scale that the word exponential doesn't even do it justice. You know what I mean?
It's a living geometric field. I mean, it's just something that it's so intense and it's so big and it's so huge that it's almost like we're being called to lighten up, right? To be, if you try to take it seriously, it will beat you up.
You better believe it, man.
But the more you're just like, okay, and we all do, believe me, I get serious. It happens to all of us. Things happen, we go through it. But I was talking with Andrew Bartzis. He has a comedy channel, and he invited me on it a few times. And we were talking about it, laughter, okay? We all know laughter is the best medicine, but smiling and having that elevated state and just being able to laugh in the face of anything is something that we're not really openly taught in society. Because if you have a bunch of people who are not afraid of anything and they can openly laugh at no matter what, authority doesn't like that. You have a bunch of people and they're just sitting there, they're not afraid of you, they're just laughing because they know that this is way more lighthearted than the seriousness that they're trying to inject upon us. You can't control that, really.
Yeah. I had a lady on a couple of days ago, beautiful sister, And we just got back from Sedona, and she actually lived in Sedona, and actually knew her partner, but I didn't know it was her partner. But anyway, so she gets on the show, and she says, "Oh, dance." I can't remember his name now. But anyway, she said that her partner and her had been together for 10 years in Sedona. So I said, "Oh, let's talk about sacred sexuality, sacred union, whatever." And because I said I made a joke. Everyone thinks that finding your partner where you manifest what you've created inside yourself, so to speak, in this physical existence. Once you find them, everything's just perfect. Everything's fluffy, love, and light. And she's like, "Oh, no. Stands with Bear. That's his name. Stands with Bear, and they been together 10 years." And she said, and I just asked her, I made that joke, and she said, well, she had a couple of things to say, but the main thing she said was, the best thing we've found is that when there is an imbalance or a little event or conflict, the quicker we can get to laughter, the quicker it's over. Mm-hmm. It's like that moment, they're kind of grounding in those moments where the human gets a little bit off, going to a quick space of balance by laughing at it, which essentially underneath it all is, don't take it so seriously. It's not even real,
Did they mention anything in the terms of, because a lot of people, it's true, like we have this kind of get rich quick fairy tale ideation of how we think things are going to turn out, mm-hmm. based on the conditioning of our past, right? And most people, even if we think we're beyond it, it's still in there in most of us and we don't realize it. But a lot of people have that idea of like, okay, well, if I do all this inner work, if I really connect to the whole aspect of what I am, and then I attract a partner into my life who's reflective of that, that doesn't mean, that's just the beginning in many ways where, and this is what I'm wondering if, I know that in my own evolutionary growth, in my own ability to break through perceptual barriers, it's not like, okay, wow, now I'm enlightened, everything's great. It's like, yeah, I was able to dump off some baggage, was able to open up, but with that came greater responsibility and a greater ability to be able to process greater and more intense amounts of energy, of frequency, or mm-hmm. situations. So people think this isn't a goal, it is literally a journey that is perpetual, but even more than the journey, it's the company you keep on the journey, which is why we have friends, but even ourselves, like I smile, I laugh, my organs are my best friends, this is the company I keep.
Right on. That's right. That's your universe, man. Yes. And really, ultimately, the universe. No, I love what you said, too, because I have a personal saying for myself. I don't say it too much on screen, and that's the higher you go, the more your soul's ass shows. And what I mean by that to myself is don't take yourself so seriously because the higher you think you're going, the more your ass is showing, And what I love about what you said, too, is there is a leveling up of responsibility that requires your free will. And that is, as you're given more comes with it. And, the old saying, what is it? The higher you go, the harder you fall. I mean, I think some of us, me included, and this would be back a few years, paid a price for, trajectory of ascending as a soul, and then just to turn my back on it and disregard it, and you pay a heavy price, especially in this energy now, because the universal energy is not playing around. There's no question, even from people I talk to that are not in the light worker circles, like my brother, for instance, like a stranger I met 3 or 4 days ago in New Mexico, this biker, 62-year-old biker from Oklahoma. We just did a quick impromptu show. They know something's happening. Something's happening. Yeah. So let go, be dragged, because we can either maximize the potential of it by using our free will to come in alignment with the free will, our universal will, or we can resist it. And, I've had enough bumps and bruises. I don't know about you, but I'd like to just surf this thing out. And I think a lot of people are starting to do it.
again, we have been taught, especially in these Western civilized, industrialized cultures, we've been taught it's a dog eat dog world. We've been taught to compete with each other. We have all these indoctrinated thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, and actions that are all based around consumerism, that are all based around supporting a system that just so happens to be crumbling, in addition to every other system that we're looking at around the world. Like, everything's crumbling, it's falling apart, it's being restructured because it's not sustainable the way it's been. It's not in alignment with the coherence of our bodies and the coherence of our body as it relates to the earth and as the earth relates to the universe. There is a big gap happening in human consciousness, but that's the beautiful and interesting thing about it is it's been going on for so long and it seems so real, but it's actually not as real as it seems. But because everybody's so invested in, oh my God, this is how it is, it's like this, we have created this really intense global situation that is kicking our asses. It is bringing us to the brink of, okay, I've been trying to get your attention for a long time, trying to get your attention through all these nudges and things, and you can't pay attention, but not quite. And so now, like, I'm going to shake it up, really get your attention. But this has been going on forever. It's just now it's amplified.
Well, we manifested our attachments. We want, well, I don't want to say we want to, because I try to be careful what I say these days, because the energy is quantum now, but we've had a history or a pattern of behavior of staying in the uncomfortable known and refusing to walk through the comfortable unknown. You know what I mean? And I think that more and more people are coming to the table and saying, you know what? Well, it's almost like the universe has come in and said, I'm going to make this as silly and as stupid and as cartoonish as I have to wake every one of you up. And I think there's some early runners here that have had some similarities in their journeys, which was a lot of trauma and estrangement from family, incarceration, psych wards, I mean, all kinds of stuff, that are saying, you know what, I don't need any more evidence. We tried that old paradigm, and let's go see what the unknown has to offer. And it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. And that's it. Like, beyond the scope of who we think we are and what we think this world is this energy that is animating our being. Like I said, the more we start paying attention to that energy, the more, quote unquote, it starts paying attention to us.
Yeah.
And at first, it's just like flexing. It's like working out, like exercising your muscles. At first, you work out hard, but then it's like, well, okay, you got to rest. But it's in that rest that the growth happens. This is very similar in that you work your muscles of perception. You're really doing everything you can to begin to perceive more of what is available. And you can't quite see it, but at least you tried. And then in that rest, where you're calming down and you're relaxing, then out of nowhere, you just realize, oh, wow, I'm starting to become more aware of these subtle perceptual abilities that are innate in each and every one of us, and that can actually be quite easily activated if we had a little basic guidance of how to activate them and what it is that activates them, and then sustaining them through being not serious, by being in an uplifted state, by smiling, by loving. Like, when you can sustain these perceptual states of being, we break out of these perceptual prisons that most of us don't even realize that we're in. Yeah.
And it's so crazy because all of our seeking has been outside, you know, and even if we've gone inside, there's still an element of this distortion of the human, what the human is, divine human is, and so on, that we discount and we underestimate the most basic, simple movements that make us up in terms of our physicality, which is thinking, speaking, taking actions. It's these little things that create our frequency. And so something as simple as, let's say, making a conscientious effort, and saying, you know what, from this point on, I'm going to eat this type of food. And I'm not advocating any type of diet. I'm just saying it's not the physical thing happening. It's the frequency that's invoked and enacted that becomes part of a compilation of frequencies that is your entire vibration. That is the force that's starting to be reckoned with. People see, the soul sees. And even if the human aspect is a little bit, out to lunch or off the reservation, the soul of that human still sees that illumination, and it's like a contagious quality to it, and that's what I see happening, regardless of all the nonsense, because there is a lot of nonsense going on. But yeah, it's definitely something that people are starting to engage in. At least they consider it. My wife is an incredible person, but I mean, she's been downloading for 20 years a lot of things. And, I've learned, like, from her, when I first met her, I had already started SOULSPEAKS. I was coming off the streets, I went through a lot of darkness. So all of my poetry and writing and speaking was about the transformation from that space. And I would always say, I'm not a human being, I'm a soul. And so then I met her, and she said, yeah, all that information is fantastic. All of that you understand is great. But if the human vehicle itself, physical, emotional, mental, isn't embodying this thing, then it's not worth anything. You're just basically standing pat on what you came into this world with, rather than being the transformer that you are,
Beautifully said. And another way of saying that is coherence, right? When you're in a state of heart, brain, whole body coherence, where your mind, all the chambers of your mind, all the chambers of your heart, every organ in your body is syncopated to the beat of your heart. When you're in a state of calm, then this energy that we truly are, the soul, suddenly feels comfortable to animate this in a way where you consciously become aware of how it's animating it. Yeah. And then it's no longer looking like, okay, I'm this person having this human experience and this is what happened to me. You become more like a divine antenna. Yeah. Your human body literally becomes like an antenna for your consciousness, where you can start perceiving the reality of what you are. And this actually helps you to be able to perceive it more, because this is the vehicle for the evolutionary process of the soul.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same consciousness as my Syrian aspect or my dragon aspect. It's the same consciousness. It just looks different because it's physical, but it's the same thing. A lot of people have talked about this year that have come on the show, having conversations about the body as a consciousness in the team. As the human, let's say the human has multi faceted aspects to it, the body being one. That's a huge one. This is what we're walking and talking and eating and drinking and breathing in, and the body's starting to say, don't eat that, go for a walk, you need to go get something to take care of this little problem here, or this problem has been originated by something that you have a blockage in that needs to be removed or healed or aligned. I mean, have you found that this year that the body's speaking louder for you? Because it sounds like you've been tuned into your body for longer than most people I've talked to.
It keeps going so deep. I mean, layer upon layer upon layer. And, a lot of people in the New Age spiritual communities have this idea that ascension, or, going to these different levels, is what it's all about, and having the ego die and leaving this all behind, when really it's more like, no, it's more about becoming aware of what this animating principle is, and then living embodied with that is what the ascension, you could say, is more about. There's a crystallization of human consciousness that is happening within each and every one of us. And the more we love our body, the more we treat it with respect, the more we are in it. I mean, I'll sit and I'll smile. Smile is a great acronym for smile. Start my internal love engine. I'll smile inwardly. I'll just breathe rhythmically. And I can do that for hours. And just the feelings that all of my glands start producing feels so much better than any external thing that I've ever done in my life,
Right on.
including sex, including the best drugs I've ever done. None of those things have any weight over these internal states that we have the ability to cultivate as a result of us choosing to prioritize focusing on them, and then focusing on them and watching how, like I said earlier, when you focus on this energy, it starts to come into focus and you realize that it's focusing on you.
That's
And
right.
at that point, you have this intuitive dialogue, this co-communication where you just know how to evolve. You know how to level up the aspects. Because, I mean, think about it. Most people think, I'm me, I'm Seth, this is my life, this thing that happened. But there is this miraculous energy causing the heart to beat that it causes, every time you think a thought or you walk or do something, your brain and nervous system are sending bioelectric signals faster than the speed of light through your body.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not doing that. There's something that is doing that with me. Yes, I have the ability to affect it based upon how I think and feel, but there is something else that is happening to us, through us, that is so much greater than the sum total of who we think we are as human beings.
Yeah.
And the more we keep prioritizing that, keep giving attention to it, the more that starts to reveal itself for what it really is. And it wants us to evolve. It wants us to grow with it. It wants us to love each other and help each other get through this, because it is unified throughout all space and time.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. That's where anything we do has effects, for lack of a better way to say it, across all timelines and dimensions, past, present, future, and all that stuff. And, you're talking about is what I was referring to when I say, stepping into the comfortable unknown. I say comfortable because there is a certain muscle memory to the innateness that you're talking about. There's an innate, inexplicable, to the human, incomprehensible force that is us, but it's more than us. I had a conversation with my higher aspects. My wife and I connect every night when we go to bed, and I was told, get out of bed. And then I was told to stand up, and I was hearing this voice, and the voice said, basically the short of it is, I am this you. You've heard this voice your whole life. I'm like, yes, I have, even when I was a little kid. And the understanding that because I saw like these figures, and I said, okay, what am I looking at? Well, these are aspects of me. They were all aspects of me showing me like a memory or a code, and it could be an event, it could be a dragon, it could be anything, and that I was actually containing all of that within myself. Some of it had been opened up in terms of remembrance, and some is still to come. But yeah, this goes along. And of course, when these things happen to individuals, and they happen all the time, one thing that we can know for sure, if it's something that's occurring, like what happened to me, and it's happened to many people, it's not just about me, where you actually start to have a physical dimensional experience, where you're consciously awake, standing up, and you're seeing the wall disappear, and you're seeing these dimensional type of characteristics, like we will in a lucid dream or in a dimensional or interdimensional experience. But when we start to acknowledge these things and talk about them, we are offering code to other people, codes of remembrance, potential remembrance, And I think also because of the way it's been so uh, recognizable that the energy is in itself transforming collectively throughout the earth, especially in 2020, that if it's happening to me or it's happening to you, whatever that may be, in terms of an elevation or expansion, that it is energy that is now ready and available to anyone on the earth and accessible. And so that's why I think when it comes to what's going to happen, people want to talk about what's going to happen at the election. Well, who cares? What's going to happen in 2021? What's going to happen on December 21st, 2020, when all these planets align with the moon and the sun? Who cares? It's all in our hands. You know what I mean?
It's look up at night, look up in the sky at night and like see where we are. We are on a living blue-green planet spinning in the middle of space that is surrounded by infinity. The entire universe is alive, and it's all communicating with itself at all times. I love what you said because, and I would love to add on to what you were just talking about how when you're having these experiences and you're seeing stuff and you realize that the scope of it is within you and you're having, these great awakenings. Let's take that a step further for people and apply it to the things that jam people up, because I'll have a lot of people who will say things to me like, oh, okay, great. You can get into these elevated states and you feel amazing and you feel connected to everything. But what about, the atrocities that are happening in the world? What about the pain and suffering and all the evil and all the things that are happening? I can't just stand there and let that go by. These people are victims. We're victims of it. There's an elite ruling class that is controlling us. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yes. From the perspective of the human being who has been conditioned to believe they are separate from their own body, from the energy that animates their body, and from the rest of the world, then we're always going to be a victim. And there's always going to be something that causes us to be afraid, right? And we can stop right there. And that's where a lot of people have stopped. Yeah. Because it just seems so big and it's so scary, like why would we even try? But what we're realizing is, okay, if you are in an elevated, aligned state and you're able to sustain it, and you know what that feels like and what it's like, it's the communication of the universe just starts happening through you. Then when you witness atrocities or quote unquote terrible things happening in the world, as long as you stay in a space of coherence, then just the very act of you perceiving something that is out of coherence gives you the ability to shed the light of a new coherent consciousness onto whatever circumstance that is. And it will change it, whether immediately or eventually, it will change it. That's and right. This isn't like, a lot of people know this. People, like science has proven this. There's a lot of things, sure. But for me, I experienced this firsthand when, going back, I was in prison. And when I got in there, I was a disaster. I was like, my whole life was falling apart. I was the biggest victim on the planet. Yeah. I started getting into these states. I committed to them above and beyond anything else. I was like, this is what I am. Whoops, sorry about that. I was like, this is what I am. This is all that matters. And I'm going to stay in these states no matter what. And as a result of being in a fully coherent state where all the organs of my body are all linked up and synced up and communicating with each other, my thoughts are coming from the feeling of what it's like to be connected. Yeah. That suddenly this universal coherence, the real reason why all of this is existing, suddenly starts to become in the realm of your ability to perceive it. Yeah. Now, the mind can't take it and break it down and articulate it and package it the way we'd like to, in the way that we're taught to learn in this linear world. But you have an intuitive knowingness that is in alignment with it. And when you stay in that space and you hold it, other people who are not in that space, they're in a stress response. They're stressed out. They're not in coherence with their own body. They're they're angry and they're fighting and all these different things. When you are in that space and you hold it and you stay in it, because I got to a place where I was like, I'm not going to let anybody or anything take me out of that. And if I come out of it, it's because I'm choosing to.
Yeah.
I made a choice not to. And I watched how the frequency of being in a coherent state, coherence entrains incoherence. And I watched these men around me who, grew up in the ghettos and places where you would never think they would care about the exploration of human heart or consciousness. These guys could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, what is this? What is that? And they didn't know what it was. They didn't know what was causing it, but they would ask me, and I was just like, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you were doing it. They're like, yeah, but I don't remember feeling. I'm like, I was like, don't you remember feeling this at some point? And they'd be like, like, I remember being a little kid. And I'm like, yes. See, that's it. When we were little kids, before the world damaged us, before we started becoming addicted to believing that we are our human identity, that we are separate from each other, from source, from everything, we have awe and wonder. We have this imaginative capacity that is alive and well in most kids if they haven't been abused really bad. But that same coherent imaginative capacity is alive and well in every single one of us right now.
That's right.
And so if we engage those parts of ourselves, that's flexing those perceptual muscles.
That's right.
That is activating those inactive or dormant perceptual energy centers that are in and around each one of us. They're there. And this year has been amazing because it is just everything's being brought front and center. And those of us who have some kind of intuition that something like this is happening, we're doing it.
That's
we're
right.
Pushing all the old stuff. It's not comfortable, right? Like we're going through some stuff. We're purging things. We're feeling things we don't want to feel. But it's because we sense there is something so much greater than our own suffering. And that is what is coming into this world.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's going to sanctify us, our sexual expression, our ability to connect with one another. And eventually, it's going to cause us to live in coherence with the natural world.
Absolutely. Yes. It is their natural, it is our natural nature, I mean, the subtleties that you talk about, that's so deeply ingrained, even like what you're talking about with the body. We're just now starting to pick up on the way we've been talking to the body. If you say to yourself, you pass by a mirror and I say, damn, I'm getting gray and ugly, I'm talking to my body. It might sound like I'm just, but you know what I mean? If you look at like Dr. Emoto's with the water molecules, and so the way you speak to the water, and it's the same substance. It's the same God substance. We've got a friend in Vancouver, Canada, Candace Coe, beautiful sister. She just summarized what you were saying, and I got to read it. She's a part poetress too.
Love to hear it,
She says, so as we come together in coherence, we create or impart coherence around us. So many of us in coherence together can create an even greater coherence around us. And she signed it as synarchy. I like that. And then she said, so we don't really have to do anything or force change. We just be in coherence. And if we can do that in groups, we are entraining the fields of reality en masse. So this is the power of where two or more gather. And like what you said, I have said in my own way, in a different way, same thing, which is what you described in terms of that self-awareness and trajectory, because we know everything is always in motion, of coherence. alignment, whatever you want to call it. That's the greatest contribution we can make. So when somebody comes to me and I know that they say, well, this is going on, that's going on, and we've got to fix it, and we've got to protest, march, boycott, whatever the case is, hey, as within, without. Taking that on one by one as things are presented to you is to, like you said, is to maintain and sustain that field of coherence, that fortification of your own energy field, because you are a magnet, electromagnet tuning fork, and anything and everything around you will rise to you, will match you, and this is where the essence of it all is, the essence of I am a co-creator. I am the same God substance you are, and any equal and unique soul walking this earth can change the entire world, and actually does it every moment. We just are now starting to detect it,
Beautifully said, my God. It's and I love what she said. I mean, it's so true, and we know it. And so now it's getting enough people to understand that philosophically, because we do need to understand it from an information perspective, just so we can begin to prime ourselves to have the actual experience of it.
Yeah.
There's heart coherence, there's brain coherence, there's whole body coherence, when all the organs of your body have their own level of coherence.
That's right.
In coherence with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we choose to prioritize these priceless states of being that become amplified and made exponential just by us focusing on them with an uplifted state, breathing rhythmically, getting into it, the more we choose to create that internal field of coherence, the more we ultimately have the ability, just like I said, like the body is a receiver. It's like a transmitter. It receives and sends frequencies like it's an antenna for the potential of human consciousness. You eventually start embodying and emitting universal coherence.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
Go to we are the source. There is no separation except for that which we have become addicted to believing over countless generations, to the degree that so many just think it's normal.
Yeah, and that's what you're saying. What you're saying is a great explanation of what is a quantum field. What I don't even know. I would call it a God field, goddess field. Oh, he snapped out. But what he's saying is like what what we're emitting. What we're emitting is this is instant manifestation. Like, I'm going to take this in. Because we're receiving and sending at the same time. So the quantum scientists would explain it as what you think you're seeing is what is going to happen, right? Something to that degree. It's deeper than that, and it's faster than that, and it's much more multifaceted than, I'm going to think of a blue car and it's going to appear. No, you're going to think of a blue car and you're hitting all timelines, dimensions, and every single point on the grid in the earth. I mean, and it's moving so fast too that, like, this whole thing about what you're saying too about, there is a fusion. We have to respect the human experience and the divine human being, the experience, because we've had this process of, okay, I need to understand this and I need to understand that. And it's like everything in this journey is about integration, physical, non-physical, masculine, feminine, all the way down the line, to include how we understand things and comprehend things, and that which we can't. That's all coming to a head too. So there's like equal parts surrender and equal parts practice. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
Beautiful.
This is I hate to go. Actually, I could go longer, no doubt. So hang on a second. I've got a business meeting in 30 minutes, and I got to prepare for it. It's been a great pleasure in meeting you. I want to say this publicly. I'm very thrilled to see. I know we're all androgynous, but we're in a transition, and it's really nice to see, representation of an ascending, evolving, expanding, elevating divine masculine in the physical body. And I'm seeing more and more of that. And I can see it in the Soulology numbers. Actually, when I got back from Sedona, I checked the demographics of Soulology, which had started out 85-15, women to men, and is now 67-33 after 9 years. So we're moving rapidly, and I want to thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of humanity, because I know everything you do within yourself internally is with the intention of also serving humanity in the collective.
It's all that matters.
Yeah. Can you hang on 1 second? I'm going to sign us off. I'll see y'all later. I don't know if I'll be back on today, but you never know. Thank you, everybody, for your continued love and support and contributions.